Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. I hope this finds you well. Today we'll be talking about the comedy action adventure role-playing game Deathspank. Deathspank was developed by Hothead Games, published by Electronic Arts, and was released in October 2010. As is standard, before we get talking about the game proper, if you like what I do here in the Ancient Dwarven Hold, then perhaps subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up, and maybe comment on your thoughts about the game. Right, back to Deathspank. It is certainly an interesting choice to name the main character and game Deathspank, but it kind of fits in with the silliness that this game exudes. Well, this is indeed quite a silly game. I was reminded about this game when I saw an old video by the late great Total Biscuit and thought I would give it a go. In Deathspank, you take on the role of the titular hero as he embarks on a quest to find the artifact, of which neither he nor the player has any clue of its purpose, nor why we are searching for it. The game follows Deathspank as we attempt to locate the artifact with all the silliness that we come across along the way. Deathspank has a wonderful start menu. You can start a new game should you fancy, continue one you've started before, check what's set correctly in the settings, check the help and credits, look at the leaderboard to see who's the leader on the board, look for achievements to see what you may have achieved, and lastly you can quit. The graphical style of Deathspank is a quirky mix between the three-dimensional and hand-drawn two-dimensional elements. Some scenery and characters are very much two-dimensional, while Deathspank and most NPCs are very much three-dimensional. This mix of dimensions adds to the wacky and weird style in this game, with some characters looking most silly indeed. The scenery and the backdrop to the game is very cartoony indeed, and does look like a world created for some odd series that you might see on the telly. This wonderful hand-painted look of the graphics really add to this feeling, giving the game a timeless style that is still attractive today. The equipment that Deathspank will acquire looks fittingly silly and over the top as you expect, with items being of awesomeness and other exclamations. The sound in game is decent enough, with good feedback from using your weapons to smack foes or if you take some damage in return. The monsters and baddies make their own funny noises when you engage them, or they come running just at the sight of you. All of the dialogue between Deathspank and other characters is fully voiced. There is a lot of silliness here too, with Deathspank trying to be that over-the-top zealous hero type, approaching every scenario as a mighty quest to be embarked upon. Indeed, the talking between characters is a big part of the comedy and silliness of the game, with people responding in strange and funny ways to the questions you ask. You can go in depth with the silly if you like when selecting responses, or you can do away with it and get down to the mission at hand. You begin the game in a small area of the world as Deathspank, with some starting equipment. There is a tutorial of sorts that explains some of the features to gameplay and what you should probably know in order to progress and have fun in this game. In this starting zone, you will dispense some justice to bad things, while following the trail in your initial attempt to obtain the artifact. Once this opening act has been completed, you'll be able to venture forth into the world at large, where along with numerous side quests, you will get roped into recovering a group of orphan children, along with your goal of finding and obtaining the artifact. The game world is split up into various maps, some of which have certain theme to them, like the spooky haunted forest or the vibrant enchanted forest. You can travel between maps as you wish, though some paths are blocked by gates or taken up by drawbridges, which you'll have to visit again later on. The world is somewhat of an open world in a sense, with the player able to generally go to whichever zone they wish with the aforementioned restrictions. This does not say that you could defeat monsters in any given zone. For example, the said enchanted forest contains some vicious unicorns you can't even damage at low level. To facilitate movement between maps in a speedier fashion, Deathspank will gain access to outhouses that are sprinkled around the map. They act as fast travel portals that allow us to teleport to any other outhouse on the map that we've previously discovered. They also act as a respawn location should you meet your end at the hands of some no-good evilry. The combat in Deathspank is fairly engaging, with you able to equip and swap between two sets of two weapons. This means you could swap between weapons that might be best suited to certain situations, like a ranged crossbow or an elemental melee weapon. Each of the weapons in a set is mapped to left or right click of the mouse. This allows us to attack with 2 weapons alternatively as we see fit, and the game rewards you for doing so. You will do more damage with the more unique sequences of attacks that you can produce. Certain weapons also have special justice attacks you can perform once you've filled up your justice meter through combat with baddies. These attacks usually occur the next time you use the weapon and can take different forms like a spinning whirlwind, chain lightning, or big slams on the ground. You will acquire special runes that allow you to combo weapon types together that when you fill your justice meter, if you press both the right and left buttons at the same time, you'll perform a special mega combo attack to dispense even more justice. Besides the swinging of weaponry, both ranged and melee, you have the ability to block enemy attacks with your shield. This isn't a specific item in your inventory, just something you always have on you and which you cannot upgrade. Should you be holding your shield in front of you, you will block the damage from an incoming attack, massively reducing the damage you take. This is very important, and if you wish to have a chance against greater foes, you will need to make use of this feature. Some monsters can 1 or 2 shot you if you make no attempt to use your shield. You have to try and weave in your attacks between blocks when you can to avoid taking too much damage yourself. As you progress through the game, you will upgrade your equipment with drops from bad guys and as quest rewards. These are your typical fare of helms and gloves and armour, etc., along with swords and axes and maces and such. There isn't a lot of nuance going on, with generally the item with the most health or damage being the correct selection for any slot. There are a few items with specific resistances which can help against certain enemies. Different weapon types can also affect gameplay. For instance, a fiery demon is immune to fire-based weaponry, so you'll need to switch to something more useful, like a frost weapon of some sort. You will gain levels as you earn experience from dispatching Ivory and completing quests. Each time you reach a new level, you'll be able to choose from 2 or 3 upgrades at a time, like plus melee damage, range damage, or movement speed. It isn't particularly exciting, nor are you really able to build Deathspank in any particular way, as oftentimes the choice isn't really much of a choice. The quests, of which will grant you rewards and booty, are very much what you might expect, including fetch quests or having to kill X amount of enemy Y, etc. While there are some that are a bit more involving, like the quest to recover all of the missing orphans, along with the ongoing saga of the artifact. You can largely ignore side quests if you wish, and just do the main story quests, but you will miss out on experience, drops, and some useful items, like a special sword able to combat ghosts when no other will work on them. The main story of Deathspank isn't any great tale. Essentially, it boils down to you dealing justice to bad guys while trying to obtain this nondescript artifact for no real given reason. The game satirises the role-playing game genre in many aspects of gameplay, and I imagine the threadbare story of you seeking some random trinket is part of that. It is funny, but at the same time it also removes any investment you might have were the story more interesting. I guess the developers might suggest that if you're looking for a deep, interesting story, you should probably play something else. You will spend your time completing quests, gaining levels, and following the story to its conclusion. It is of course a satire of the RPG genre, so there are lots of silly nods to common tropes and contrivances, and general silliness to boot. The game is fun, and the cartoony style with the comedy gameplay does make Deathspank feel somewhat unique. I think someone's choice to give the game a go would depend on whether you like the silly humour and sending up of role-playing games. If you find it funny and fancy playing a light-hearted bit of fun, then I would recommend this game. The combat can be engaging, but I'm unsure if it alone would entice someone to play it if they didn't like everything else the game has to offer. It's enjoyable for sure and quite unique, but as I say, if you find the humour a bit naff or dislike the art style, then perhaps it won't be for you. I certainly had a good time with it. It's available on Steam, and I imagine you could pick it up in a sale. And there we go, dear viewers, another video done. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're doing well. I now will close the doors to this ancient dwarven hold once more and say goodbye. See you next time.